Counselor Abeyta,
Here.
Counselor Garcia,
Present.
Counselor Lindell,
Here.
Counselor Vigil Coppler,
Here.
and Chairman Rivera.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Approve of the agenda. Any changes from staff, Ms. Wheeler?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything from the committee? Wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval of the agenda by Counselor Vigil Coppler, second by Counselor Lindell. Any further discussion? See none, could we have a roll call vote roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz?
Counselor Abeyta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Vigil Coppler,
Yes.
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes. Now let's move on to approval of the consent agenda. Any changes from staff?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right, anything committee members would like to pull for questions? Counselor Vigil Coppler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to pull item A and C.
A and C. Counselor Lindell.
A was the item I was gonna pull, so thank you, Counselor.
You bet. Counselor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item E as in Eric.
E as in Eric. And then Counselor Beta, I don't see.
No, I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Very good. So at the moment, we have items A, C, E, and I'm going to ask to remove item J. J as in John. So A, C, E, and J. What are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion for approval is amended by Counselor Lindell, second by Counselor Vigil Coppler. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Abeyta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Vigil Coppler,
Yes.
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion
Next,
passes.
Thank you. Next, approve the minutes from the April 26 Public Works and Utilities meeting. Any changes from staff?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Changes from the committee? Wishes of the committee? Counselor Vigil Coppler.
I'm going to abstain from the minutes since I was excused and not present.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval by Counselor Lindell, second by Counselor Garcia. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Abeyta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I think you still have to call on Counselor Vigil Coppler even to abstain. I believe she has to put that on the record.
Counselor Vigil Coppler,
Abstain.
thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, anything tonight, Ms. Diaz?
Mr. Chairman, I have not received any public comment.
Very good. We're on to presentation informational items. Public Works Quarterly Training Report. Ms. Wheeler?
Thank you, Chairman. The Public Works Department is submitting its quarterly training report to the Public Works and Utility Committee. It has each division's training activities for the first quarter of the fiscal year, of the calendar year. What is it actually? So I'm so sorry. 2021, yeah, the first quarter of the calendar year. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything that you need to report on it, or are you just standing for questions?
Just standing for questions.
All right, any questions on the report submitted by Ms. Wheeler? Counselor Vihel Coppler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to note one thing in the first report, there's an error on sexual harassment. So that you might want to correct that a little later. Am I right? On the first report.
The
Oh, wait,
airport,
maybe it's traffic. I'm sorry.
the second.
Second one, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, we'll get that corrected.
And then I do like the format of number of employees and then percent attendance. And then when you get to the facilities, we don't have that kind of information. So I'm not sure if I'm just not reading it right or understanding it, or if there's.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, Councilor Vihel Coppler. I noticed that a little bit before the meeting too, and gave some feedback to the facilities team that we needed that to indicate how many eligible employees there were and then what number of those attended.
And I think, thank you. I think most of the charts are pretty consistent in the columns and such that they have. Well, when you get to parking, so I'm not sure if number of employees is the 80%, or is it only 80% of 4 employees, but I don't think that number would be a half employee or whatever. So I'm not sure. Does number of employees on parking mean that's the total number of employees that need to go, or the total number, the number of employees who have gone to training?
I was checking to see if Noel is with us so that he could answer that question. I think what it means is the percent of eligible employees who have completed the training. And so that 4 is 80% of the eligible employees who should have that training.
So if you notice on most of the other charts, you know, it lists the number of employees that have gone and the number that are eligible. I think we established that a long time ago, that kind of information is what is most useful. So thank you for the report. And it would just a little more tweaking would be probably more beneficial to have at a you know, just a glance that we kind of know how many are left and, you know, what progress is being made. But other than that, I think it's all good. I'm going to ask my standard question. Does the safety office know that you have completed all this training?
I know that the division directors have been working with the safety office to conduct a lot of training. I did not specifically share this report with them, but I know that all the division directors work with them on a regular basis, but I'll download it now and save it and send it to them.
Yeah, that would be good, because then they have a record of all of the good training that's been going on. It's always good. So, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is all I have.
All right, any other questions on the report? Yeah, Ms. Wheeler, I had the same concerns as Vihel Coppler. If we could standardize the way traffic and the airport did theirs, I think that provides us the best information. And if we can standardize those, I think that would be probably the best.
Thank you both for that feedback.
Thank you, appreciate it. I don't see any other questions, so we'll move on to our action and action items under consent. The first item pulled was request for approval of the road transfer agreement between NMDOT and the City of Santa Fe that transfers road maintenance responsibilities for segments of Cerrillos, St. Michael's, and Old Pecos Trail to the City of Santa Fe. Councilwoman Vihel Coppler and Councilor Lindell pulled these as well. So Councilor Vihel Coppler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So On page 27 of 42, there's an effective date of August 21st, and then there's a different effective date of June 1st. So I'm not sure, maybe Ms. Wheeler, you know that those two dates make sense because maybe they apply to do two different things?
Thank you for the question. No, actually, that's a small error in editing. So we originally were processing it for a June 1st adoption, but was clear that it wasn't going to make it through all the procedures. So the actual effective date is August 1st.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm wondering, because we have this agreement and then it says the DOT with it, that the legal provisions will be provided in 2 years. So I presume that's 2 years after August 21st. How, it doesn't make sense to me to sign an agreement and not have the legal, whatever the legal information is going to be, not be provided for 2 years.
I'm sorry. I thank you for that question. Actually, what it means to say, and I thought this is what it said, was that the all of the legal procedures for completing the transfer of ownership will take 2 years from the execution of this agreement. So it's that's what's happening is we're fully committing to the final legal transfer of ownership as has been contemplated by this agreement for 20 years or so. And it'll take those 2 years and a little bit of time to get all of those completely executed properly through the city attorney's office.
So I guess the question for me is, what if legal comes up with provisions, DOT and legal, our legal, come up with provisions after the fact, after August 21st that we don't know what they're going to be? Or is there something more specific you can provide?
Actually, yes. Thank you for the question. We've actually completed the transfer of 10 other roads on this agreement, Airport Road and a whole bunch of roads. And this is exactly the procedure that we've used for each. And city attorney's office did review the contract and approve that language and process.
But now these are other roads though that I'm just curious, what could possibly be addressed in the legal documents that we don't know about now, that we're going ahead and approving this without having that?
It's just a procedure. There's no new information. It's just a process of completing the transfer of ownership. It's sort of like this. It's best to transfer ownership after governing body approves the transfer and not before. So this is the governing body saying, yes, we're accepting the transfer of these as has been forecast in this agreement for over 20 years. And now it directs staff to finalize the execution of the documents to transfer the property ownership.
Okay, so for example, within this, the city has to construct or ensure that the ramps on some of these streets are ADA compliant, which they are not now. And they have to repair that and ensure the drainage is right. So,
I'm sorry, I don't think that's correct. Actually, it's actually a stipulation of the agreement that DOT gets the roads in full compliance prior to transfer, which is why they repaved St. Michael's Drive for us last year and why they redid the Big Cerrillos Road construction 10 years ago. And that's so we were waiting for them to finish that. And that's also why the little 1 mile of Cerrillos Road that hasn't been reconstructed is not transferring, because they haven't completed their work to get the roads into condition for us to accept them.
okay, but I wish I'd written the page number down, because I did, in all these documents, I did read that somewhere where the city would need to construct and make sure that the ramps are ADA compliant. So maybe Mr. Rosado can address that.
Good afternoon, Councilor. Good afternoon, Chair. There are some section on San Michael's and all Pecos Trail that the city has to get in a new agreement with NMDOT to finish some of that scope of work.
But the DOT will be completing the work and they've already committed to that and they've given us a timeline.
They
for it.
will reimburse the money, yes.
Okay, so that's right. The city will do it and then we'll get reimbursed.
That's correct.
Okay, is that anywhere in the agreement that we're going to approve, or does that come with legal in 2 years?
No, that the city has to define the scope of work, get an estimate, and then NMDOT will agree to reimburse the money.
Okay, and
It will
then,
be a separate agreement.
okay. And then on, I think page 40 of 42, it refers to a bump on Cerrillos Road at Rodeo that DOT will not fix. And I drove over that bump today by coincidence. So what's up with that? It's a pretty sizable bump.
Yes, I tried to get that repair from NMDOT before taking responsibility of the road, but they refused to address that bump in the road there.
So they can just refuse and the city just says, okay, we'll fix it?
Thank you for the question, Counselor. DOT has been a really excellent partner with us on getting these roads into the condition. They really felt like having the city ask them to repave St. Michael's Drive after we were 15 years late of completing this transfer was a little bit of an arduous request, but they went along with it. And so they've done a lot of work. They did take a look at that bump. We've asked them to look at it a couple of times and it's just not something that they can find a resolution to. So that's one thing, but we have had really excellent cooperation and continue to partner with DOT really well on these roads. And we are highly involved in the reconstruction project of the 1 mile that's left between St. Michael's Drive and St. Francis on Cerrillos there. And so we're having a lot of input in that road should be greatly improved by the project that's underway right now. So we agree that the engineering solution is not straightforward and that we accept that bump as it is.
So are we going to fix it?
It's not in our plans right now.
It's not a smooth bump, by the way.
I know I've driven over it myself. We've all taken a look at it. It's not a hazard. It's not a I mean, Javier, would you be able to comment on whether it causes hazardous traffic conditions?
Oh, yeah, it's a bump that is located in the intersection close to the on the south side of the intersection. I don't think it will create any traffic hazard conditions, but yeah, it's uncomfortable to drive by because of the you can feel it, no? But that's basically what it is. Apparently, is the result of the way that that section was built in the past. You know?
Well, thank you for that. It's not maybe it's not a hazardous traffic condition, but it sure is a hazardous condition for my car and for every car that drives over that bump, which is quite a few cars. And I think it's a bump enough that could flatten a tire if it, if someone hit it at the wrong angle or something, which is a strange angle if you're turning left onto Cerrillos. But I don't think it's immaterial. And I think that, we ought to get DOT to fix it or then we need to fix it. But it's not a tiny little bump. And I just wanted to let you know that because, I understand DOT is, they've poured out their heart and soul in pavement, but we're just a little city, and they have much to be thankful for that. I think that we are potentially going to take these roads over. And so, if we know this and they're just putting their foot down, they're not going to fix it. I think it should be fixed. The next question I have is, there's also the same kind of like hands up on that American Rescue Act plan, where someone in there, maybe it's DOT, that says, I don't know how much money the city's gonna get from that, if any. Can you talk about that? And then the last question I have that's kind of related to that is, how much is the city going to get from DOT to take over these roads? That's not addressed. I didn't see it addressed anywhere. I didn't see any money addressed anywhere.
Thank you, Chairman and Councilor Vihil Coppler, for the question. The city agreed to this transfer with no funds in exchange for the 599 road development, which is a great boon to our city for development on that part of town. And so the agreement was entered many, many years ago, and there is no funds being transferred with this agreement, as was contemplated in the original execution of the agreement.
Well, I understand that, but correct me if I'm wrong, I thought part of the idea of 599 was for the WIP project. And then, that was all, that involved others as well as the city. I know it wasn't solely for that, and then they decided to take it down St. Francis Drive anyway. So we're not getting any money for any maintenance, for anything. We're just gonna take these roads over.
That's correct. That's as it has been approved by governing body over the years. And a number of times, even since I've been here, this agreement has been before the governing body.
Well, so it's before us now again, though, for these latest roads. And these are, still part of the bigger interchange roads for, main roads. And I'm concerned that we're not getting any money on this. And then they don't even want to fix that bump. And I'm really not a believer in, we've always done it this way, so let's just go ahead and continue to do it this way. Was that on the table at all? Any funds for taking over these roads?
Chairman, Councilor Vihil Coppler, I wasn't here 20 years ago when the agreement was first entered, so I have no idea what those negotiations looked like. But it has never been on the table at all in the negotiations since then, just the terms of the agreement that require the road condition to be a 5-year payment quality.
Okay, well then, I guess the last question I have is, what's in it for us? Why should we take these over? Why should we agree to this?
Chairman, Councilor Vihil Coppler, it was agreed to 20 years ago in exchange for having 599 built, I believe was seen as an opportunity for the city to have a more area for development of housing and industry. And I think we're realizing that benefit is at this point, but I wasn't there at the time.
I guess none of us were, but well then, if it was agreed to, why is it coming before the governing body?
Each time the roads transfer, so it came for Airport Road, it came for each chunk of road actually transferring.
Well, I guess those are all my questions, Mr. Chair. I feel like we might be missing the boat by not having some consideration, i.e. funds at all for taking over these roads and the like, but I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for all of that information. I think most of what I wanted to ask was asked in that last exchange. It's probably not a deal that today that I would be embracing and think is a great idea, but we have an agreement that we made with the state in the past, and it appears to me that we need to honor that. Like Councilor Vihil Coppler, I wish we were getting something for that, but I guess in the past, that previous council felt like we were getting something for it. So the agreement signed, and I don't know if within that agreement, we're probably late in implementing this, but was there a time frame on implementation
Chairman, Counselor Lindell, I think you're asking if the original agreement that was signed years and years ago contemplated when the roads would be transferred?
Correct.
I don't actually know the answer to that question. I don't know if Javier does.
I mean, it was just informational. I mean, it's really not germane. I just wondered if we knew that. Because it seems like an awful long time that we've waited to implement. Was there a reason that it came forward now?
There
I-
is, go ahead.
Sorry.
Javier.
Actually, I didn't see any timeline in the original agreement. The conditions were for an NDOT to complete the improvements. So basically the time has been set by the dates when they are finishing their improvements. So it will be the same that for the last section of Cerrillos, that they are planning to complete that section probably 2 to 3 years down the road. So that's what is defining the timeline.
Okay.
Yes, and
thank you.
I'm sorry, just to add that St. Michael's Drive was just paved last season. So
I
that's
see.
why, yeah, they finally got it.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one, either Ms. Wheeler or Mr. Rosado. We don't accept roads typically until they're designed and built up to city standards. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Javier.
No, that's correct.
All right, so these roads that we're accepting now, with the exception of the ADA ramps, I guess, on Old Pecos Trail. I don't know if it was anything else. It said something about some damaged drainage inlets. So we'll do the work on those and then get reimbursed after the work is done through a separate agreement, it sounds like.
That is correct, Chairman.
All right, and just looking into, I agree with my fellow counselors about whether we'd be doing this, but I remember not too long ago, St. Michael's was in horrible shape, and every one of us kept getting calls about it, and we kept saying it's a state road, it's a state road. So they finally built it up. Now we're accepting it, and we're responsible then for these roads now if any problems happen. So are we in a good situation to do that, Ms. Wheeler? I know most of these roads are newly paved, but 10 years from now, which I know is far ahead, but if we had problems now, including wintertime, I guess, when we're going to have to be clearing these main thoroughfares as well, are we in a good position to be accepting the responsibility of all the maintenance and everything that goes along with them?
Chairman, thank you so much for that question. The governing body just approved in the budget an additional crew for the streets team for the adoption of these roads. And we are also looking to fund an additional plow and street sweeper because it actually is an increase in priority 1 roads by 50% over what we handle right now. So it's significant. That funding for the plow and the street sweeper is going to have to come from hopefully a GRT bond this fall. But the question about if we're in a good position to maintain roads overall is actually that we are not. We don't have a steady funding source for maintaining the pavement in our city. We did a gas tax bond of about $14 million in 2017. That money was all very efficiently and excellently spent by Mark Brooks, and we are completely out of pavement rehabilitation money at this moment. So we won't be doing any rehabilitation this year. And to really keep up with the backlog of our pavement degradation, we need to be investing about $5 million a year. So it really is important that we identify a really good steady funding source for maintaining all of our pavement across the city. And gas tax is down, so that's not going to be a reliable source. And as we see moving forward, going to like electric cars where gas will be less and less of a fundraiser, we really, I think, need to think deeply about how do we fund pavement rehabilitation in our city in the long run.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. That's all I had. Anything else? Don't see anything. So what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion for approval. Councilor Lindell, a second by Councilor Beta. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Beta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes,
Counselor Vihil Coppler,
Yes,
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. We're on item C, request to publish notice of public hearing on June 9th for an ordinance amending subsection 14-3.7F, notes 15 and 16, to allow the minimum lot size to be 1.25 acres for a lot created through an inheritance or family transfer subdivision that results in only one additional lot. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Councilor Vihil Coppler, pull this.
thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a crazy question, but I just wanted to ask it. Will this ever apply to commercial lots in a family? Okay. And then I take that, Mr. Isaacson, as a no.
Sorry, thank you, Councilor Vihil Coppler, Mr. Chair. This is meant to apply to residential lots in areas of the city that do not have access to either water or sewer services. So it's limited to those lots. These lots are predominantly located in the recently annexed areas of the city, with a few lots existing in the foothill areas of districts 1 and 2. So this applies to residential lots. It would result in an additional lot. It only applies to lots that are larger or equal to 2.5 acres in size and result in 2 lots no smaller than 1.25 acres in size. I know I'm listed on this item, but actually Noah Burke has been leading this effort for the Land Use Department. He's here with us this evening. He also can answer any questions you may have. And then I believe we have both sponsors of the bill with us also this evening, Councilors Lindell and Abeta. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next question I have is, after the family lot split, what in here holds this into perpetuity? In other words, what would prevent approval of a family lot split only to sell off later on, outside of the family?
Chair, councilors, Councilor Vihil Coppler, thank you for that question. So there is actual language that is in chapter 14 that has to go on the plat, that for a period of no less than 3 years, it has to stay within the family. After a period of 3 years, they can sell off the lot.
So 3 years isn't a very long time. And I was just wondering if this is just a little bit of a loophole. Because 3 years doesn't sound long enough to me. What documentation is required of the families to prove familial relationship, and how far into, I guess the word sanguinity or whatever, you know what word I'm talking about. How far down do you have to prove family?
Chair, Councilor Vihil Coppler. So some of this language was already in the family lot transfers or family subdivision transfers language already. So I'll just read word for word what's in the code, and we haven't proposed any changes. It would only be for creating 2 new lots and transferring a lot or lots to his or her children, natural or adopted, or grandchildren, or it is created by a person who has performed the function of father, mother, grandfather, or grandmother for the purpose of transferring the lot or the lots to those persons. who perform that function, provided that the person proposing to create the subdivision and then transfer it files the appropriate documentation of conveyance along with an affidavit proving the lineage that was stated before through an signed and notarized affidavit with the county clerk.
So they just have to file an affidavit of that familial relationship.
That's correct.
Okay. And has it always been 3 years, or is that something that was written in here?
Chair, Councilor Vihil Coppler, it's always been 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any other questions? I don't see anything. Mr. Burke, after meeting with Councilor Beta and the Planning Commission, I've agreed to co-sponsor as well. So if you can have me listed on that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, I don't see any other questions. So what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Motion for approval by Councilor Lindell, second by Councilor Garcia. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Beta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Vihil Coppler,
Yes,
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Next, we're on to item E, consideration of contract for the Santa Fe Business Incubator, a renewal contract for small business development services for the Economic Development Department. Councilor Garcia, you pull this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Brown, Ms. Krish, and Marie for being with us tonight. Completely in support of the incubator and the critical services it provides to our community. Just got one quick question because I didn't see it and maybe I missed it and you can refer me to it. I didn't see an FIR in the packet. And so if you have a page number, if not, if we can get one produced for this, just because I know that it's heading off to finance next.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and councilors and Councilor Garcia. That's a good question. I'll check with Ms. Krish. I didn't know if the FIR was there because the impact is positive because of the growth in business, but we will definitely check on that to make sure that it's in the procurement packet.
Okay, but so it sounds like there was one produced. It just for some reason wasn't part
sorry,
of
Mr. Chair, Councilor Garcia, I don't think there was. And I'm going to ask Ms. Krish from my team if she has.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Chair, Councilor Garcia. Thank you. I don't believe one was produced.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Councilor Garcia, it says it's not applicable on the checklist.
Okay. Why, I guess, and maybe this is just a little education on my behalf. Why wouldn't it be applicable if it is going to be impact the city financially?
Well, that's a good question, Councilor Garcia. I don't know why they're not included because it's to our GRT, which is a positive. So the investment is returned, X-fold based upon the impact for the year. But I'm looking through the required pieces and it says there's no FIR required for.
If I could, Chairman, I believe FIRs are only related to resolutions and ordinances, and is this a contract?
This is the contract, yes.
Yes, we don't do FIRs for contracts. The fiscal impact might be indicated in the contract as far as terms for payment one way or the other.
Okay, I think that's maybe something then we need to change within our internal procedures because there should be an FIR with any contract. But thank you for the clarification, Ms. Wheeler. I appreciate it. No other questions. Thank you for presenting this and good luck with putting out the resources in the community.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilor Garcia.
Any other?
No other questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. From the rest of the committee, anyone else?
Move to
All right.
approve.
Thank you.
Second,
Motion for approval by Counselor Vihel Coppler, second by Counselor Lindell. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Abeyta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, item J, request for approval of ITT contract for Motorola Solutions for emergency communications repair in the amount of $273,676.60 for the term May 12th, 2021 to July 31st, 2021. I pulled this. Mr. Gonzalez, I think this was probably before your term began with IT. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but we had a lengthy discussion at Public Safety Committee. Back then, one of our members, Mr. Tapke, was very knowledgeable about emergency communications and prime sites and towers and all that. And at that time, I believe is when the city had recommended to move the prime site to a different location, and now it looks like we're moving it back because of lack of coverage. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. The city went live with the P25 public safety radio system on January 13th. Immediately after, Santa Fe PD and Santa Fe Fire were experiencing out of coverage, dropped calls, and bad transmission. After working with Motorola, we identified it's the location of the tower, the Los Montoyas Tower. So the recommendation from Motorola and IT is to move that equipment back to the prime site, which is the Buckman Tower.
So what happened that the recommendation initially to move it, and I believe Motorola at that time, as well as Mr. Tapke and several others, had really asked a question about coverage and whether it was going to prove to do what everyone thought it was going to do. And clearly they were right in their questioning. So do we know where the failure was or what happened?
So the recommendation from IT and a third vendor was to move this implementation, this build out to Los Montoyas, because it was a higher elevation, but it is 2 miles farther north from the city. And the thought was that we'll expand our coverage. We did expand our coverage, but due to the elevation, it's skipping over the lower level, laying areas of Lower Alameda, Lower Arafria, Lower Siringo Road. So if we move back to the prime site, the Buckman Tower, it's a lower elevation, but it's 2 miles closer to the city. It'll hit those lower elevations throughout the city.
So how did we not evaluate that 2 miles further would impact communications in that way? How did we let that slide?
That was the recommendation from IT at the time and another vendor that was working with the city of Santa Fe. They thought it would expand the coverage throughout the city.
So
And
that
like I said, it did expand. We go out farther, but we're skipping right over those lower laying areas throughout the city.
and that other IT or the other vendor, is that vendor still doing work with this program?
Mr. Chair, no.
All right, I thank you for that. And so there are currently areas that there are no communication with our emergency services?
We have some dead zones in the city with the system right now, and we have bad transmission and drop calls. To mitigate the issue, IT replaced all the antennas on Santa Fe PD's units that increased the performance. We also replaced all of Santa Fe PD's handheld radios. Their handheld radios were out to date, so they got current handheld radios that increased the performance. But to completely resolve this issue, we have to move to the Buckman site. After that move, we will still have dead zones on the south side. We've always had dead zones on the south side of Santa Fe, and that's why we're in our recommended budget for FY22. We want to stand up a second tower at DPS to address the south side issues and have a redundancy in our system.
I think that's a good idea, and I think that was the recommendation as well by the Public Safety Committee. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, again, I'm not sure who this other vendor was. I don't quite remember the name. I could look at it, but it seems that Motorola has the best understanding of how we do business and where all the data zones and area are. And I'm not making a push for them specifically, but clearly somebody with their knowledge and expertise, I think, is the best thing moving forward. It keeps us in best position. You hate to lose communication, especially in emergency services. That could be a bad thing. So,
Mr. Chair, this is IT's #1 priority to fix this issue for the city of Santa Fe.
thank you. Appreciate that. With that, I'll move for approval unless there are other questions.
Second.
We have a motion for approval by myself, second by Councilor Vihil Coppler. Any further discussion? See none, could we have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz?
Counselor Abeyta,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Vihil Coppler,
Yes.
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On to item 9, we have nothing. 10, we have nothing. 11, matters from staff. Ms. Wheeler?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I should let the Public Works and Public Utilities Committee know that we are having some staff departing from the Public Works Department. Michael Garcia, Michael Rodriguez, I'm sorry, the Division Director for the Facilities Division is leaving. He's retiring. Let's see, I think there was somebody else departed. I'm so sorry. Who else was departing? We had, I think, let's see. I guess that's the big announcement. And then people are receiving offers from the county and the state and Los Alamos. And it's a really tricky time right now with people getting offers from other organizations. I think it sort of threatens our staffing levels. And so we'll continue to work with individuals and the HR department and the city manager to post vacancies really quickly, try to do a really good job recruiting. And I guess that's the other thing I should tell you. We posted the traffic engineer again for about the 5th or 6th time in 4 years. And we had even reduced requirements and we got no qualified candidates. So we continue to be without a traffic engineer. And so we're really looking at beefing up our activities around recruiting to, we're gonna have to really get a little bit more targeted than just posting on our website, I think. And so I think that staffing is an area that we'll be focusing on for a little while here while it's hard to find qualified candidates and people leave with counter offers.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Matters from the committee.
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Vihil Coppler.
I wanted to ask Ms. Wheeler, aren't there professional publications that are suitable to advertise in for these professional positions that we continually have a hard time recruiting for, whereby the jobs can be placed in those which require like at least a month advance for them to be published simultaneously while we are advertising, on our website. It seems like if we have trouble getting people, we should be advertising in these journals. Or have we?
Thank you, Chairman and Councilor Vihil Coppler. Yep, for the traffic engineer, we did multiple times put it in a number of actually professional websites. And that didn't get us any qualified candidates either. I think the traffic engineering one is a really difficult one because I just think the number of civil engineers that are coming out of college right now is lower than it used to be. We've been trying for 4 years. It was, part of what happened to John Romero was he could just never get a traffic engineer to backfill that position, and he continued to hold it, which is a heavy load. So we did use a professional website for that, but I think you're right. I think we'll have to really find lots of places to post our positions to access good qualified candidates.
I just don't understand why we can't get people.
It's a nationwide problem, actually. There's a huge, everybody's having trouble filling positions. And so, in fact, it's something that we were thinking about with some of the aid money coming from the feds, that it would be maybe a good thing to do, to spend a little bit of money on really hard to fill, really important positions. Because it's around the country, it's hard to find qualified people to fill all the positions.
Do you think the job is properly ranged?
I do. In fact, the traffic engineer position, we removed the PE requirement and kept the pay the same.
Well, I'm talking about, is the pay correct? I mean, is it attractive enough?
I think it is. Yes, I think it's a really great. I think the person only requires 2 or 3 years of experience. 3 years of experience, and we give them 2 years to get their PE, and it's paying like $80,000. So that's somebody right out of college.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? See none, matters from the chair, I have none. Just thank you all. And our next meeting is Monday, May 24th. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.